Namaskar and a very pleasant good afternoon to all of you. Warm greetings to you from DELNET Developing Library Network, New Delhi. It's a profound privilege for me to welcome you all to today's webinar, which is on research data management landscape, what librarians and researchers needs to know, which is shortly going to be conducted by Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj, the Chief Librarian at St. Stephen's College at University of Delhi. It's a profound privilege for me, firstly, at the very outset, to welcome Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj, the distinguished speaker of this webinar today. We must thank you, Dr. Raj, for acceding to our request in being there with us this afternoon. And on behalf of DELNET and each one of our attendees, we would like to welcome you to today's webinar. And thank you so very much for accepting our request, taking out time in being there with us today. Thank you, Raj. Thank you very much. Thank you. I have an immense pleasure in welcoming our library and information science professionals who have joined us from different nooks and parts of the country. My very special welcome also to the various HODs, the faculty members, researchers and scholars who have been able to join us not only from India, but also various nooks and parts of the country. It's indeed a profound privilege for us to have each one of you with us today at this particular webinar, which is on research data management. We have pleasure in welcoming you, and I would also like to say that today is a webinar yet again of DELNET, which is being conducted as a part of our monthly webinar series program. Today, May 31st, the last day of the month, and herein we are there to greet you with this webinar, which is being conducted on a very important aspect, which holds great significance for librarians as well as for the researchers and scholars. Today, we are deliberating on research data management landscape. And for that matter, all of us are fully knowing, about RDM. And today we are going to deliberate, and we have a very distinguished speaker with us who is going to deliberate on this research data management aspects. The RDM is something which is gaining, high prevalence now, and it's gaining popularity in the institutions. It's gaining popularity when we talk about the scholarly communications or even the code of research communications which are being done. And as a part of our institutional research strategies now, the inclusion of research data management is something which holds now great promises. We, as the library and information science professionals who are supporting the researchers and scholars in our respective institutions, and also at large, helping the researcher and scholarly community, must really know about what does this RDM and what are the things that we need to know about it. And most importantly, yes, for all our researchers and scholars, you need to know about it, because when we talk about the research data, it's not only that you are creating the data during your research, but also you have to safeguard that you are able to manage that data well, you are also able to curate that data well, and also you should be in a position, and others should be in a position to use the data that you have created as a part of your research output. So we have an immense pleasure in having each one of you today with us, and we really look forward to the deliberations which are shortly going to be convened by Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj. It's a profound privilege for me to welcome once again Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj, and also to introduce him to each one of you. Dr. Bhardwaj, I'm very happy, and it takes me immense pleasure and also profound honor and great pleasure in informing you that Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj is a recipient of UN4IM and the prestigious Commonwealth Professional Fellowship of United Kingdom. He is also the recipient of the Informatics Innovation Award 2022 and Informatics Outstanding Researcher Award 2022. We heartily congratulate him for this very, very latest accomplishment that Dr. Raj has recently been awarded, and that's an appreciation to his, the great work that he is being engaged with. Dr. Bhardwaj is currently working as a librarian at the most prestigious college at Delhi University, that's the St. Stephen's College. He also worked as an assistant professor in the School of Information and Communication Studies at the Central University of Punjab, and also played a vital role in establishing the department, including the curriculum design for the master's and PhD program, and introducing 4 new courses, including on legal information system, research data management, which is the topic of today's lecture, and e-research tools and techniques, and also entrepreneurship in library and information science. Prior to this, Dr. Bhardwaj served as a Deputy Librarian at Nalanda University and also at Judges Library, High Court of Punjab and Haryana at Chandigarh. Dr. Bhardwaj holds MCA, MLISC, and also an MPhil PhD from the University of Delhi. He has to his credit more than 3 books, 45 research papers in various reputed journals published by Emerald Publishing, Taylor & Francis, Cambridge University, 3 conference papers, and has delivered more than 75 invited talks at various association conferences and also at the international conferences, including at IFLA WIC. He has been with us at DELNET during our NACLIN conferences, also at the Asian Library Association conferences, and many more. Several of his lectures were also being telecasted on television DTH channels. Further, he also trained librarians of more than 500 government schools in Delhi in the last 10 years through in-service training programs. Dr. Bhardwaj has completed 4 major research projects and working on several international projects. He is also the reviewer for 10 international and 3 national journals in information studies. Dr. Bhardwaj is also the information coordinator and standing committee member of IFLA Hague, Netherlands, IM section, and the jury member of the International Paper Contest of Assist of USA. He is also the founder of the startup ISVI. It's a profound privilege to welcome you, Dr. Raj, to today's webinar. Thank you very much for taking out time and being there with us. We really look forward to the deliberations and to your enriching session on research data management landscape, what librarians and researchers need to know, and all of us really look forward to having to listen to you to your enriching talk. So I'm requesting you to please accept our invite to be the panelist, so that we can have a look at your screen here.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta Kaul, for this generous introduction. And I'm really grateful to her for providing this opportunity to share my thoughts on this latest topic, research data management. I'm also really impressed with her leadership, and the progress has been, a lot of progress has been made in DELNET and by various initiatives in recent days. So coming back to the topic of today's discussion, and that's research data management. I'm sure you can see the slides now. So
very much.
Yeah, so what this topic is all about, and what I have done in this area, that's also you need to know. I actually came across this topic when I was a Commonwealth Fellow in 2017 in UK. And under this fellowship program, I had visited several universities, but there one thing was common in all these UK universities was actually they were doing one thing which we are not doing in South Asian countries, and that was a research data management. So I was really impressed with this new development in the Western libraries. And when I came back to India, first thing I did is I studied what is the status of research data management in the country. And afterwards, I edited one book on research data management, and then we edited a special issue of Desktop Journal of Library Information Technology on research data management in higher educational institutions. And afterwards, I actually inculcated a interest in this topic and associated myself with the one project of California University that they have developed a tool, DMP tool, which is actually being used by most of the Ivy League universities worldwide. So this is, and that's by participating in various meetings in the Western libraries and through online meetings, that also gives us nowadays facilities to share my own ideas. And we actually came up with a revised version of the DMP tool, which was a project of California University. So that's how I learned research data management, not just by my theoretical knowledge, reading books and articles, but also participating in the various meetings and working on the different projects on this topic. So how this is important to know what this research data management is all about. Okay, so that's one aspect you need to understand, that the research data management here, that you need to understand that data is very valuable. But and this is the story which will give you some idea that how the data is important as a researcher and as a librarian also. So there were two forces in the Second World War. One was the Allied forces, like in US and the UK and other countries, and another was Axis, wherein there was Japan and Germany and a couple of other several other countries. So Allied actually, they realized that their fighter planes were coming back. Actually, they were shot down. Lots of their planes were shot down. So they tried to find out what are the reasons. So they came up with the data that what the plane which they are coming by the bullets, most of these bullets are found in the tail part of the fighter planes. So they decided, and they come up with the conclusion that this is the portion which are mainly hit by the enemies, and why not to armor that portion. So tail part of the portion should be covered with the iron plates. So they decided to armor it. But there was one actually mathematician in that group. His name was Abraham Wald. So Abraham Wald told that don't look this data into this perspective. You are looking the planes which are coming back with the shot in the tails part, but you are not looking into that aspect about those planes which have not returned back so far or which are shot down. So instead of armoring the tail part of the aircraft, we should armor the engine, the front part portion of the aircraft. So this is actually through this story, and you can realize that it's not the data which is important. It is the story, how you make your story using the data. And that's the role of the researchers. Because when you look into the PhD topic, your PhD thesis, which is spanned from 300 pages to 400 pages, and sometimes more than that, we actually include data in our thesis only which are related to our objective. But the researcher actually generate much more data, beyond the PhD thesis. So what happened to the data? What is the story of that data? And that's how this concept has emerged, research data management. Because if you look into the lifespan of one researcher, a researcher generate more than 1 terabyte of the data. And the PhD thesis only include some of the table and some of the figures. So data generated by the researchers are much more than that. And that's how this concept emerged, because which are the data which are not included in the PhD thesis, which are the data which are not included in the articles and other monographs. We also need to utilize that data, because if the researcher, another researcher will look into the data, they can make different stories, as the Abraham Wald has made a story using the existing data, and they actually successfully came up with the saving a lot of aircraft after Abraham Wald told them that not to cover the tail portion of the aircraft. In fact, you should armor the front portion of the aircraft. So that's how the data is important. I'm sure you, through this anecdote, you got some idea. And how you'll pursue this, that's now the agenda is how you pursue, because the research data management is a very new topic. So if you go back to the library philosophy, information science philosophy, the Ranganathan has given us 3 planes, and these 3 planes says idea plane, verbal plane, and notational planes. So Ranganathan says these 3 planes in the context of classifications to generate the class number. But in my perspective, these 3 planes can have a much more utilization, even if you are using the ICT in your library, even if you are trying to adapt the new tools and technologies. So Ranganathan, these 3 planes gives a, if you look into from a different dimension and different perspective, it says that generate an idea that how you are going to implement the new tools and technology, and then discuss that idea with your colleagues, with the stakeholder of the institutions, and then try to make a blueprint how you'll implement that idea. And same happens to the research data management also. So in fact, with the help of research data management, you can also apply, in fact, 5 laws of library information science you can apply in research data management as well. Because Ranganathan says books are for use. Every reader should get his or her document, her book, or every book should get his readers, isn't it? So same things can be actually applied in research data management also, because here nowadays the data is very important. So data is for use should be our first fundamental laws in the current scenario. We should also think about that each data set should, or each reader should get, or each researcher should get the research data, and each data set should get its researcher. And we should also try to manage the data in such a way that we can save the time of the users. We can get the data in a shortest possible time. And Ranganathan fifth law, library is a growing organism, also applies here, because data will keep growing over a period of time. So when you are thinking to manage that data, you should also keep in mind that over a period of time it will grow exponentially. So whatever tools and technology you are applying, whatever methods you are applying in managing it, you should keep in mind that it's a growing, and over a period of time more researchers will come to the universities, more projects will come to the universities, and as information science professionals, you have a responsibility to manage that huge amount of data sets for your organizations. But now the data is one aspect, but here in this session we are talking about the research data. So how the data and research data is different, that you need to understand. The story which I told you, Abraham Wall, that is about the data, that is not about the research data. Research data is which you actually generate during the process of the research, and the research data is any information that has been collected, observed, generated, or created to validate original research finding. Although usually digital research data also include non-digital formats such as laboratory notebooks and diary. So here, any data which validate the finding of the research can come under the scope of research data. For instance, I'm giving you examples of social scientists or researcher in the field of social science. So here, researcher actually collect the data using the questionnaire. Researcher also need note down lots of major points in their diaries. So these questionnaire also become a part of research data, because if you have to validate the finding of the research, you cannot only solely depend on the data. You also have to look into how the data was collected. So questionnaire also become part of the research data. The diary where they note down lots of readings also are a part of the research data. So in short, I would say that anything which validate the finding of the research fall under the category of the research data. And research data is management is not an easy task, because it's a diverse. It's come from different sources, and the research data is very valuable. One researchers spent 3 to 4 years to complete the research, and major portion of that period he or she spent in collecting the data. So it becomes very valuable and costly fair. In fact, the research done by the corporate houses, their data is very valuable. If that research data is leaked, the other company, the competitor can actually take away their whole business, isn't it? And the data is very sensitive sometimes, because if you are collecting the data from the patients, the personal information of those patients are very sensitive information. So you also keep in mind that it's a sensitive, it's a massive in many ways, and it's a complex and derivative and cognitive ways. So these are some of the characteristics of the research data. But you also need to understand what are the different sources when you are talking about management of the data as a librarian or as a researcher. Because this topic you need to understand not just from the library information science point of view, you also need to look this as a researcher point of view. Because if you would like to be a successful researcher, one of the characteristics of the researcher is organizations of the data. One of the major actually successful researchers attribute is that you can present the data in a very organized manner. So you can only be able to present in an organized manner when you can actually manage your personal research data in an efficient manner. If your research only your personal research data is segregated, then how you present in research paper, how you present in your thesis, how you will present to your supervisor or departmental research committee. So all these things become very important. So other thing is that researcher in present time cannot solely depend on their own data which they generate. They also need to work very smartly. So smart researcher is also need of the hour, and the smart researcher doesn't generate the data which is already generated in the past. In fact, if I have to correlate the finding of my own research and I want to demonstrate it that it's a new finding, then how you'll demonstrate it? Obviously, you would demonstrate with the matching with the or correlating with the past research. So as a researcher, you need to understand how you will correlate your finding with the past research, and therefore you also need to have a clear-cut idea what are the different sources of research data. So there are different sources, for instance, the observational data. So this type of data which is generated using the observation. But one of the characteristics is it's very hard to reproduce this kind of data. For instance, the ice cap during a particular seasons or particular date. It's really hard to actually reproduce that data. So because if my research demand that I have to record the ice cap in a particular duration in a one particular region, then hilly region, then I have to observe it using certain devices, and if I lost that data, then it's really difficult to reproduce it. So one source is observational data, another is source is experimental data which we generate through the experiment in lab. For instance, the gene sequencing. So gene sequences data can be reproduced, but it's a very expensive one, isn't it? So it is not just expensive, it's a time consuming also. So that's another source is experimental data. And the third source of research data is through simulations. So we have a program, like for instance, and then we match that model with the existing data, and then we come to the conclusion. For instance, we predict about the weather. So prediction about the weather is actually matching the model, simulation model with the existing data, and then we come to the conclusion that whether they predict about the forecast, the weather forecast. So simulation data can also actually reproduce in many ways, provided the program, the simulation program works well. So here we are not concerned about the output. We are actually concerned about the input of the data and the output, keep coming out. Another is derived data, compiled data, which we actually generate by compiling the different sources. So here, this kind of data can also be reproduced, but provided the original data still accessible or still exist. And the third is reference and canonical data is a static or organic conglomerations are the collection of smaller data sets, most probably published and curated. So these are the different sources. So as a researcher, you need to understand what are the different sources and how you will get those data sets. Now, in recent time, we are actually talking about the open science. So the concept of open science is that the research which is actually funded by the public taxpayers' money, that research should be freely accessible to the people, not just the scientific community, but also the business houses as well as the society. So the open data concept came. So to address this open science, we have to understand what is open data is, which is machine readable, available in bulk, and provided in open format. So these are some of the attributes of the open research data, and which freely available published specifications, which places no restrictions, monetary or otherwise, upon its use. So these are the definition actually given by this is Open Knowledge Foundation who come up with this definitions. But you need to keep in mind that the data which is generated using the taxpayers' money, that should be accessible to the societies. So I'm sure you got some kind of understanding that what this research data is, what are its different sources. But now you need to understand why, as a researcher, why as a library information science professionals, why we need to manage the research. So this is a short actually video, and I would request Sangeeta ma'am to run this, and afterwards I'm sure you will get some clues that how this is important as a researcher to manage your research data. So this is a discussion between two scientists in this video, and because when you are managing the research data, here is not just the tools and techniques, but the associated softwares, associated program, they also need to be preserved. So here this is the discussion between two people, two scientists, and one scientist is actually requesting other scientists who has done a similar research in one particular area, and he is asking or requesting other research scientists to give that data so that I can, come up with something new in a particular area of research. So could you please run it, ma'am?
Yeah, surely we're going to do that, Dr. Raj.
Hello. My name is Dr. Judy Benign. I'm an oncologist at NYU School of Medicine.
Hello, Dr. Judy Benign.
I read your article on B-cell function. I think that I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer.
I am not an oncologist.
I know, but I think I could use the data for my work on pancreatic cancer. Do you have the data?
Everything you need to know is in the article.
No. What I need is the data. Will you share your data?
I am not sure that will be possible.
But your work is in PubMed Central and was funded by NIH.
That is true.
And it was published in Science, which requires that you share your data.
I did publish in Science.
Then I am requesting your data. Can I have a copy of your data?
I am not sure where my data is.
But surely you saved your data.
I did. I saved it on a USB drive.
Where is the USB drive?
It is in a box. It is in a box at home. I just moved.
But can I use your data?
There are many boxes. So many boxes. I forgot to label the boxes.
Hello again. Thank you for sending me a copy of your data on a USB drive. I received the envelope yesterday.
You are welcome, but I will need that back when you are finished. That is my only copy.
I did have a question.
What is your question? You might find the answer in my article.
No. I received the data, but when I opened it up, it was in hexadecimal.
Yes, that is right.
I cannot read hexadecimal.
You asked for my data and I gave it to you. I have done what you asked.
But is there a way to read the hexadecimal?
You will need the program that created the hexadecimal file.
Yes, I will. What is the name of the program?
Cytosynth.
I do not know this program.
It was a very good program. The company that made the program went bankrupt in 2007.
Do you have a copy of the program?
I do not use this program anymore because the company that made it went bankrupt. Maybe you can buy a copy on eBay.
I have good news.
You again.
I talked to my colleague. She knew a person with a copy of the software.
Then why do you need me? Everything you need to know about the data is in the article.
I opened the data and I could not understand it.
If you have the program, you will find it is clear.
Well, I noticed that you called your data fields SAM. Is that an abbreviation?
Yes, it is an abbreviation of my co-author's name. His name is Samuel Lee. We call him Sam.
I see. And what is the content of the field called SAM1?
Ah yes, SAM1 is the level of CXCR4 expression.
And what is the content of the field called SAM2?
That is logical if you think about it.
What is the content of the field called SAM2?
I don't remember.
What about SAM3? Is there a guide to the data anywhere?
Yes, of course. It is the article that is published in Science.
The article does not tell me what the field names mean. Is there any record of what these field names mean?
Yes. My co-author knows what the content of SAM2 is, and SAM3. And SAM4.
Can I talk to your co-author?
I'm not sure.
I would very much like to talk to your co-author.
Well, he was a graduate student. He went back to China 2 years ago.
Can I have his contact information?
He is in China. His name is Sam Lee.
I think I cannot use your data.
You could check the article to see if what you need is there.
Please stop talking now.
This video, I'm sure you got an idea So data management is such a difficult task, not just for the professional, but for the researchers. Even if they're managing the personal data, research data is also a very difficult task. If you look into this, if you realize this discussions, defining the variable is also one of the challenging tasks. So you need to define the variable properly. Like if you want to use your own data down the years, you also need to understand what are the different variables you have used in your research. So reusing actually become very, very important. And why I'm telling you the reusing is important, because sometimes the data which you have generated, you may publish 4, 5, 6 paper out of it, but if you show that data to other person, he will another researcher may look it's a benefit from different perspective, and they can suggest you a new paper out of it. For instance, I'm giving you an example of my own research. I did research in 2015 on legal information system. That was my topic. But after 3-4 years, actually, I realized that in the legal domain, why it's a male-dominated field, and why it's the very few actually females in this professions. If you compare the ratio, it's a huge difference. It's a totally male-dominated profession. So then I realized that why not to study using my own data sets, using my own PhD thesis, because in PhD thesis I only included some portion of the data, but not this gender perspective. And then I actually conducted the research only using that data. I didn't do any further survey because everything was there in the data. So that's here the discussions gives us an idea. This that you need to understand that you need to define the variables properly. You need to manage the software associated with it properly. You also need to explain your data properly so that you can use, not just you use, but other researchers can also look into it, and they can also visualize the benefit. They can also foresee how that data can be correlated with other existing data, and that helps not just your visibility, but it will also help us in actually collaboration. So these are the conversation. I'm sure you enjoyed it, but you also need to understand there are various other reasons apart from this conversation which came us with certain conclusion that you need to manage it properly. There are natural calamities also sometimes destroy our data. So if you are actually, suppose you're carrying your data in your laptop and you are traveling, and something happens to like your laptop, or something happened while traveling, then what will happen? Your whole research of hard work of 3 or 4 years will go away, isn't it? That will be waste. Similarly, sometimes natural calamity can also destroy your data. You have your data in your lab, and something comes up because of natural calamity, your data destroys. So there are certain other reasons also that you need to manage your data properly, not just defining the variables, not just explaining your data, but also storing the data is also become important. Preservation of the data become also important. So you need to understand what are the benefits of research data management as a researchers, because if you manage the data in your organizations, you can find your data anytime, isn't it? So as a researcher, if you are participating in your institution's initiative, that suppose your institution take a responsibility that they will manage it. So even if you are traveling, even if you are not in that city, even if you are not at home, your institution can provide access to your data. So you can find the data anytime. You will never lose the data because the institution has taken a responsibility of its management. So your institution will take care of natural calamity, your institution will take care of theft, everything they will take care of, because there are certain steps to follow. Follow all these management processes, and data will remain accessible. So even if you want to showcase your data to other people, that is only possible because if your institution is managing it. So you can give access to the data which your institution has provided to you. So you can share that link and the resources with other people. So the data remain accessible all the time, and it's in publishable stage. Another benefit is Like suppose you are as a researcher, my main actually goal is obviously that people should know me, my research, what I'm doing. That's one of the goal of the researcher, that he or she wants to be actually famous among their peers, isn't it? And why to get the credibility and to get the acknowledgement, why to use only the publications? The data is also equally important. So if your data is in publishable stage, you can also showcase that to the your peer. You can also showcase that to the professionals working in different countries and different institutions. So that's possible when your data is in publishable stage. Other benefits is no duplication, especially in the developing country. We actually waste a lot of money, manpower and time, because there's a huge duplication of research. So in fact, not just in our own, social sciences, that's the problem is in all streams. So duplication, they slightly modify the scope, they slightly modify the objective in different language. So that duplication can be actually that duplication can be avoided if the research data management can be done. So not just the thesis you are checking the duplication, but managing the research data also, you can actually avoid the duplication of the research, and of course enhance the visibility of research data and increase the number of citations. So in various Western world, the universities are also realizing that why to use the publications for the promotions, the citation of the publication. They also realize that the citation of the data should also be used in the person promotions or credibility. So they have actually also included in that assessment criteria that how their data is being cited, how many people are citing their data. So that's also one of the criteria, and that's also one of the benefits, that not just the citation of the publication, but the citation of the data can also be used for the promotions and the various other factors. So, and it also provides opportunity for the collaboration. So if you share your data, that other people may see that this data is also related to the research which I have been doing. So it also increases the chances of collaboration with others. And of course, it also demonstrates the research integrity and the validation of the research, because there are several studies. In fact, one of the study by John and Lowenstein, they say that 45.8% of the researcher selectively report the data. Means if the data doesn't match with the objective, they don't report. But if it match with the objective, they report. And in fact, in their study, they found that the 38.2% said that they decide whether to exclude the data after looking at the effect of doing so. So they sometimes exclude it. They include and exclude the data, only looking whether they are actually suitable to their requirement or not. And in fact, in their survey, they found that 0.6% of the researchers, they falsify the data. So falsification is also one of the problem. So if there's some certain disputes in the falsification of the data and the falsification of the research, but if you are managing the data, that problem can be avoided. So that you need to understand that validations, integrity and validation of the research results can be demonstrated if you are managing your data as a researcher, and as a librarian, if you are managing for your institution, you are actually demonstrating the integrity of your own institutions. So all this, and in fact, in the Western world, this is not a actually voluntary task. In fact, the funders have made it mandatory. In fact, 10 years ago, when UGC used to give project to the faculty member, they used to include one line that everything, whatever you publish out of this project, you have to actually link the research article on your institution website. Similarly, in the Western world, they have made it mandatory that if you are, taking a project, the project money should be used, that the data should be shared with people. You have to manage the data in your institutions. You have to share the data with the people. So these are the compulsions. These are the actually guidelines they actually include in the project proposal. And when they get the project, all these points are mentioned there. So these things you need to understand that this is not a voluntary task. You are actually bound to share your data which you generate after the research project in the Western world. This has not come to the developing country, but our new science and technology policies slightly talk about this. So in fact, Department of Biotechnology is also coming with this kind of a guidelines that you have to share your data with the public. In fact, the ICSR in India has also mentioned that you have to share your data after the completion of the project with the ICSR, and then ICSR send that data to the repository which is hosted by the InfluNet Center Ahmedabad. So there are certain initiatives in developing country as well related to the management of data. But you need to understand there are several benefits, not just the foundation from the higher authorities or the funders, but there are certain benefit as the researchers. So this is a collective task, not just the institution task, but it's a collective task from the researcher as well. So researchers should also come forward to share their data with other people. So there are, I'm sure you understand what are the different. Similarly, there are benefits for the institution as well. So institution can also showcase their integrity. Institution can also increase their visibility, and of course, when they manage the data, they can take a better decisions. So there are certain benefits from the researcher's point of view, and there are certain benefits from the institution point of view. But so far, this actually concept has not gained so much success actually, because there are a lot of reasons. Because if you look out this trend, the worldwide trend says that Germany is one of the leading countries where there are 55% is a sharing trends occur. So Germany is leading country where the data is being shared, followed by Brazil where the 52% sharing trend, then the US 46%, we have Japan 44%. So these are the leading countries, and in fact in the leading countries you can see the maximum is 55. So the large portion, large people, large number of researchers, they are not coming forward to share their data. And Wiley has conducted a study in 2014, and they realized that there are various reasons of not sharing the data with people. And one of the major reasons they found in their study is that intellectual property or confidentiality is one of the issues. That's why people don't want to share their data. Institution doesn't have required data sharing because they don't have a institution policies to share their data. And they also say that they have a problem there, that their research may be scooped, that other people can misinterpret their research findings. So there are lots of reasons that people are not sharing, and this the study conducted by Wiley highlight these three major reasons that people think that their research can be scooped, their research can be misinterpreted, and there are other IPR issues that people can claim that this is their own research and not yours. So there are certain hesitant factors that Wiley study has found, and that people are not coming forward to share their data. So as a researcher, that suppose you want to manage the data, or as a live information science professional, you want to start research data management in your organization. So what are the different processes? So here, this concept start with the management of the raw data or data sets, the data which are lying in the PCs, which are lying in the pen drive and hard disk, that you should collect first. And then you need to move forward to the second layer, wherein you actually collect the data from which are referenced in the articles. So the data which are referenced in the different articles that you need to identify, because sometimes people upload the data in different generic repository, and then they link to their own article. So that kind of a data which are your own researcher has linked in their publication but hosted somewhere else. So that you need to collect and add to your data repository, and then you need to find out the data which are actually given in the appendix of the publications. And the last stage is you need to capture the data from the publication. So this is the pyramid, or we call it OD data pyramids, and that's how the institutions should manage the data in their data of their researchers. So this is a pyramid. But the whole concept of research data management is not an easy task, because this whole policy the whole concept is a top-down approach. This came in the Western world because their funder made it mandatory for their institutions or the people who take projects that you have to manage your data in your institution. Then the institution bound to share, make or establish a data repository. So this is, but here in developing country, there is no policy. So the policy is one issue. That is one of the challenge in developing country. There is no institution policy. There is no national policy related to research data management. We have a national data sharing accessibility policy related to data generated by the ministry and its department. But as far as research data management generated by the higher education institution, there is no policy. So policy is one of the problem, one of the challenge in research data management. Another thing is leadership, because it's a require not just the library information science professional, we not just require the researchers who contribute the data, we not just require the data scientists who will handle the whole cycle of the data management technical aspect, but also need to actually talk with the academic administrator. So here we need a team from different specializations, and the leadership is one of the challenge. We actually struggle to get a leader who can actually lead this kind of a diversity. So leadership is another problem. Research data infrastructure is also one of the major problem, because in 2017, as a common fellow, when I visited University of London and their data center, so they have a huge data center. And another university, I visited University of Bristol, and we found that there are data management is not just simply creating a data repository. You also need to create a backup systems. So in the backup system, you have to take one backup, offline backup, and the third backup in the same institution, but the third backup should be offsite. Like if natural calamity come, then the third backup, which is on the offsite, that your entire data can be saved. So this whole infrastructure development is very expensive task, and there is a cost associated with it. Like even if one researcher on average generate 1 terabyte of data, that's one of the study that says that in the lifespan of PhD, one researcher generate 1 terabyte data. So, and the research number of researchers every year increases. So managing that huge data is also a costly affair, and there's no advocacy, because there's no advocacy from the researcher side. There is no advocacy from the top level policy. So advocacy is also a problem. We don't have advocacy to manage this research data. Then description of data is also one of the challenge and the legal issue associated with it, because when we describe the book, the metadata of the book, it's a given on the book, but when you describe the data, it's a very much challenging task. So description, assigning the metadata to it is also one of the challenge. Defining the roles and responsibility of the various teams members and making the data discoverable and making the whole data repository trustworthy is also one of the challenges. So there are different challenging in research data management, but there are good news coming up, that this whole cycle of research data management coming automatically falling into line automatically by the publisher side as well. Like some of the leading publisher, they made it mandatory that when you submit the manuscript for publication, you also have to submit the data along with your manuscript. Otherwise, they will not entertain. They will not send it for the review. So this is the things coming up. So as a researcher, you need to have a clear-cut idea that even if you are researchers, your own institution is not providing this kind of facility, what are the existing platforms you will use to manage the data and share that data with the publishers. So there are platform exist, there are generic and disciplinary repository exist. So what kind of a repositories you should use to share your data with the publisher? That also we will discuss in the later part of this session. So that is one aspect. Then there are different licenses associated with that. As a researcher and as a library information science professional, you need to have a clear-cut idea of different licenses which can be used in research data management. For instance, the Creative Commons license is one such which is very popular worldwide. So all these icons, you should have a clear-cut idea. When this icon is says that, it means the data cannot use for the commercial purpose. And if this last one is coming, it means you cannot drive result out of it, and neither you can use for the commercial purpose. So all these things you should have a clear-cut idea, and this licensing and its attribute, you should have a clear idea. So this is another aspect. Now you come to the life cycle of this research data management, which starts from the data management planning. So in fact, if you apply for the European Union project or any Wellcome Trust project or any international funders, if you apply for the project, they says you have to submit the research data management plan along with your proposal. Otherwise, they will not entertain your proposal. So research data management plan is one first step in the whole life cycle of research data management. And then of course you collect the data, then you describe it, and then you add the software, associated software, which you can use for data analysis and visualization, then you archive it. So all these life cycle, and then of course people can put their questions to their data repositories, and they can actually correlate their data with the existing data, and then they can come with the new findings. And when the new findings come from the institution, it actually increasing the visibility, it also increases the reputation of the institution. So this is and of course the reputation of the researcher as well. So this is the life cycle of the research data management. Here the data management planning is very, very important. So data management planning is a document which you submit along with the proposal, that how you will manage your data in your institutions. So in that data management planning, these are the components you cover. What kind of data you will generate, how you will manage it, how you will describe it, what are the different licenses will be associated with it, and then how you will create it. All these steps actually you include. But as a researcher, you can also take up the help of ready-made tools. And one such tool is actually DMP tool. I am associated with this project, which is a initiative of California University. So once you sign up with this tool, you have to actually add your synopsis or your proposal, like all objective and hypothesis and methodology you have to add with the template, and that this tool will create a research data management plan automatically for you. So these are some of the tools which you can take help. There are a lot of other tools also. So as a librarians, you need to find out what are our role in this whole process. So our role are in a multiple points. First point is that as a library information science professionals, you need to give the data sets to the researcher. So you need to have a clear-cut knowledge about the generic and disciplinary repositories where you can cull out the data for the researcher and you can supply, which are matched to their objective or which match to their area of research. So researcher can find out what the research data already generated by other institutions or other people, and then they can actually align their research work. But other aspect is that you have to work as a interviewer, or you have to prepare a DMP for them. So instead the researcher prepare the DMP themselves, librarian can act as a mediator who prepare the DMP for the researchers. So using this tool, either using this tool or using other mechanism, they can prepare the DMP for the researcher, and they can ask actually a lot of questions. As we ask question in the reference interview, similarly a DMP interview question can also be asked. So these are the list of the questions you can pose to the researcher, and then you come up with a data management plan, and that data management plan will be submitted to the funder. So this is another aspect. But as a library information science professionals, you need to keep in mind that we cannot act as a person which we were in a during time of document repository building. In the document repository building, actually we were approaching the researchers to submit the data. But here the situation is altogether different. Here researcher has a lot of hesitant factors. Researchers do not want to submit their data because of various reasons: scooping problem, misinterpretation problems, and ethical issues, IPR issues. So as a library information science professional, as a librarian, or as a library as a whole, we should act as a mediator between these hesitant factors and the researcher. We should try to convince the researcher that there are a lot of drivers. For instance, you will get the storage in the institutions, you will get security, you will get preservations, and that will be the compliance of the funders requirement. and that will be part of the jurisdictions, all these issues, and that we will improve the quality of our data by describing it using various standards. So as a library who is one of the trustworthy institution, should actually act as a mediator between the influencing factors and the drivers. So that here that's my argument, that unnecessarily approaching the researchers and requesting them to deposit the data, you should try to address the hesitant factors of the researchers, and then you should build your reports. And there are various successful models actually where there were no policy exist, where there were no compulsion to the researcher to submit the data. For instance, the Harvard data repository. So Harvard, when the Harvard data repository came into existence, there was no institutional policy. There was no national policy even, but still Harvard Dataverse is one of the successful model in the data management. So if you want to take initiative in your institutions, these are some of the platform you can use. You can establish the data repository in your institution, or you can use the existing platform. So we will discuss that there are Figshare platform, there are OSF platform, there are actually Dataverse also allow us to deposit data. So all these things, and you need to tell your researcher that research data repository is a catalog of the data generated. It's a physical storage, and we will also take care of the file format, because sometimes suppose the researcher is managing their own data and the file format changes, then it is very difficult for the researcher to reuse the data, because the ultimate game of the research data management is the reuse. So reuse, this mantra is called findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. So to achieve this fair principle, we are actually discussing all these aspects. So as a library and information science professionals, our roles is not just support the data management and discovery, but also curation, preservation, data publishing, archiving, access to this data resources. In fact, preparing the guide is also our role. We can also act as a trainers in the whole process, that how to store the research data, how to address the funder requirement, and how to citation, because people know how to cite the publication, but the people don't know how to cite the data. So all these processes, so we can not just act in collecting and describing the data, we can also act as a trainer in the whole process. In fact, the information literacy which we talk, when we were developing the curriculum for the Central University of Punjab, we have a paper there in information literacy. So, but my argument was the information literacy is fine. Now is a time that we should also introduce data and information literacy. So as a library and information science professional, our role is not to literate people about the information, but also to literate about how to access the data, how to manage the data, how to reuse the data is also fall under the library rules and responsibility. So anyway, I will skip. So if you look into this whole research data management concept, this is basically a Western world. These things are coming from the Western world. So in fact, there are around 2,800 repositories, and out of these 2,800 repositories, 84% of the repositories exist in North America and the Europe, and the 16% remaining in the rest of the world. So in Asia, we have a share of only 6% of the data repositories. And in India, you can see there are only 45 repositories which are listed on the RE3 registry for data repositories. So we have share, but good thing is we are better than China, we are better than many other countries, and that's only happened after 2012, when the National Data Sharing Accessible Policy was notified, and the government ministries and departments starting managing the data. And in this the data repository, 2,800 data repository worldwide, you will see the most of data types are scientific and statistical data format. Configuration data is the lowest one. So these are the things, and the licenses used in these repositories are actually, most of these repositories don't follow the standard license. So you can see out of 2,800 repositories, only 579 follow the Creative Commons, and there are various other licenses. So one more thing I would like to emphasize here, our national data sharing and accessibility policies talk about these three types of access: open, registered, and unrestricted. But in the national data sharing accessibility policy, if the data fall under the second and third category, if it's not open access or open data, then the institution which generate the data, they can actually charge money for that. So they can actually generate money for that. They can sell that data if it's fall under the category of registered or restricted. So when the national policy will come for the research data sharing and accessibility, the data which is generated by the higher education institution, higher research and higher education institutions, we should keep in mind that this kind of a clause should not exist, because that will hamper to achieve the aim of open science. So then many institutions may start charging money for the restricted and registered data. So that we should keep in mind. And these are the, now as a researcher, suppose if you want to manage your data, so these are the things, these are the repository which exist. So instead of requesting, because some of your institution cannot host a repository at this point, so these are the repositories: Figshare, Dataverse, Dryad, and Genudo. You can use these existing platform to manage your own data. For instance, I'm managing my own data using the Figshare, and using the different platform, RSpace, where I can pull the data from different repositories and I can compare the data sets and I can come with a different conclusion. So these are the screenshot of Figshare, that how it looks. You have to log in into the platform, and then you can create a project and you can upload your own data sets describing its title and keywords, and using its RSpace from the multiple data repositories, you can actually import the data into it, and then you can analyze and you can visualize it from different perspective on different dimension, and come with a different conclusion of the research conducted by others, and adding your own input to it. So these are the things. So now come to the point is that suppose we have a different repositories exist, then there are initiatives in different countries. For instance, in Canada, they have set up this FRDR, Federated Research Data Repositories, where they have set up a one repository where they can actually harvest the data from other data repositories, like we do in the National Digital Library of India. So similarly, people in other country have doing harvesting the metadata of different data repository and providing the single search system, single search for the different data sets generated by different institutions and uploaded on their own data repositories. So these are the some of the things, and we should keep in mind this technologies actually come and go, as we Srimad Bhagavad Gita says, Vasansi Jirnani Yatha Vihai Nuani Griti Prani. So people come and go. Similarly, technology come and go. But what should be our aim? Our aim should be that we have to make our data, or the data generated by institution, as a findable. It should be accessible so that people can understand what the data has. Then we need to make it interoperable so that you can interoperate different data sets, and eventually that these data sets can be reused. Because when the data will be reused, then only you can reap the benefit of it. Then only you can avoid duplication of the research. Then only you can actually have a more visibility. So reusable is ultimate game. But my argument here is another thing is also that fear is the concept came from the Western world. In fact, we should, as a library information science professional, we should think whether the data is reusable or not. So we should read it in a reverse order: reusable, interoperable, accessible, and findable. So once the data is reusable, then we need to make it interoperable, then we need to make it accessible, and eventually then only we should make it findable. So that with these things, I'm sure you learn something. It's the topic is foreign to all of us, but these are the things which are coming, and I'm sure there will be policy related to research data management. So if you have any question, I would be happy to answer those. So over to you, audience.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Raj, for deliberating so exhaustively. It has truly been a very stimulating deliberation that you had conducted on this research data management and has touched upon everything concerning. There are many takeaways from this entire session, and that speaks volumes of your commitment, for enhancing this research data management in the institutions you have taken care of. Everything whatsoever one could have thought about, right from how to become a smart researcher to the roles of our library and information science professionals, also taking care of, what are the growing tools which are prevalent, how these are library professionals and also most importantly researchers should do, and even from RDM to DRM, that is disaster recovery for the data that you have. So this is like, it's all together very near thoughts, fresh thoughts that you have been able to share with us today. And we are indeed much thankful to you for sharing your very vast expertise on this subject. And indeed, I think, each one of us definitely are full of new ideas, and there is a new fresh thinking which you have been able to initiate today, through your wonderful deliberations. So thank you so very much indeed. And now you may like to, as you have been wanting it, a small poll that Dr. Raj would like to have to get the inputs from each one of you. So there are 3 questions which are going to get flashed, on the screens, and then I'm going to share the findings with Dr. Raj on this. And the first question that Dr. Bhardwaj may like to know from you is that whether have you lost ever a version of a document that you were working on for your studies? Please let us know whether you agree or disagree, or you find it as a neutral, or you don't want to say anything. Do you agree that, by saying that, yes, you lost a version of the document you were working on for your studies while doing your research? This is an issue which is quite prevalent, among the researchers, scholars, that because of any technical issues, because of any other reasons, as also being highlighted by Dr. Bhardwaj, that you have lost a version of your research work document. Do you agree, disagree, or you just want to be a neutral on this, or you don't want to, say anything about it? Please share your views. 28% of you have voted as of now, requesting many of our attendees to come forward. Please give us your candid feedback. At least we want to have it a 50% of you, so that we get a right kind of an opinion getting generated from this particular survey question. So 36% of you have voted. Quickly do that, because after this we would like to make the floor open for questions, and we really want to make the best use of the availability of our distinguished speaker, Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj. So please quickly do this so that we are able to move ahead, and then we are able to also have very active interactions with each one of you. 42% of you have voted. Please help us in completing the survey. Remaining 8% requesting you to come forward and to give us your opinion. You have got 4 opinions that you may agree or disagree, or you just want to have a neutral opinion on this, or you don't want to say anything. I think I have to now divulge the findings. 45% of you have voted, and this is for Dr. Raj to keep a note of it, that yes, the majority, 57% of our attendees do agree with this statement, thereby confirming that 57% of the attendees do confirm with the statement that they have lost a version of the document, research document that they were working on during their research studies. Quickly, we would like to now go for, and after 57%, 23% wants to remain neutral, 11% wants to disagree, so that means they have been able to do well, and 9% no opinion they want to express about it. This is for you, Dr. Raj, to keep a note. And now we would like to give you the yet another question, and the other question is getting flashed now on the screen. And the question is, I often face difficulty in finding again a document that I had created. You have created your research document, and that's something to do with the management of your research data and the research work. So do you agree, disagree? You again want to be a neutral, or you don't want to have any opinion about it? Please quickly come forward. Have you encountered this situation, then we are in finding a document which has been written by you for your research work, and then you had a problem later in finding that? So please come forward in letting us know. The findings of this survey questions clearly indicate there is a greater and greater need to have the RDM policies in place, as being highlighted by distinguished speakers. We need to have an institutional level also. Also, the steps have been taken, but also to bring it now as in research data management as a policy, it should be there from the government at the institutional level. One should do. 45% of you have voted, and I would like to share the opinion being expressed by each one of you. 54% of you do agree with this fact that yes, you have encountered difficulty in finding the document which you had created for your research work, and later on you have not been able to locate that. 23% of you wants to be a neutral on this. 21% of you disagree with this. That means you have been able to manage the things well. And 3% of you have gone for the option, no opinion about it. Now herein comes the last question. And herein comes, do you think sharing documents effectively with others causes problems? As being also highlighted by Dr. Bhardwaj during the presentation, that the survey being done by Wiley, the research findings have shown even the reasons why they are not really wanting to share their research documents. Do you think sharing documents effectively with others causes problems? So, and we are talking about the research data on which you do have an IPR issues, and then there are not many other research issues which are being there in the mind of a researcher when they think about exposing their own data to others. So what do you feel about it? Please let us know. Do you agree? You want to be neutral? You don't agree with this? You disagree? Or you don't want to give an opinion? Quickly, 41% of you have voted. We request you, please come forward. And I think I may have to, close it at 45% because it's taking a little more time. So 45% of you have voted, and this again shows that you do agree. 56% of you have said you do agree with the that yes, you have issues in sharing your documents with others, and 26% of you have opted for disagreeing it. And then we have 15% of you have just wants to be neutral on this, and 2% no opinion you want to share. So this is for you, Dr. Raj. Would you like to say something about these findings?
Yeah, this actually also demonstrates that the problem we face as a researcher. Even if if somebody will say that if you conducted the research 5 years ago and other researcher ask you the data, it's really difficult to get your own research data. So so these are the things, and that's why as a library information science professional, you need to find out your roles and responsibility in the whole process. And as a researcher, you need to have a knowledge what are the different platforms exist on the internet, which you can use freely, where you can actually keep your data. So as I told you that there are two types of repositories. One is generic repositories, another is disciplinary repositories. So I want to share my data with the one type of repository, but there are more chances that other people will look your data better, and your data will get more visibility if you will share your data in a generic type of repository. So the interdisciplinary research happens when you look the data from different subject experts, the data generated by different subject experts. So that's one thing that you need to have a knowledge about these repositories, how to use these repositories as a researchers. And here the librarian perspective is that not just you need to understand what are the different repositories exist, you also need to have a knowledge how to start a service using these kind of a platform. So if you are starting a research data repository in your organization, there are two ways to start it. One model is we call is business model, canvas business model. Actually, we call it canvas business model. Like we start as a startup. So in the startup, we actually voluntarily take people who will use the repository. They will actually showcase the benefit to the other people, and the other people will come and you will start using your repository. And the second model is when you actually people start using your repositories, actually start using data management platform, you start charging money. They're charging money in the sense like if you are institution, if your institution is research institutions, there are certainly different projects are taken by the faculty. So in the proposal itself, there are actually overhead charges comes. So you can charge money from your faculty members or your stakeholder from the overhead. So these are the two different models actually worldwide famous how to start a research data services in your organization, and is actually answer to this question support all this that we need research data services.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bhardwaj. And now we would like to make the floor open for questions. And I just would like to mention to our colleagues who are there today with us and who have posted their question in the chat box that we will be taking the questions posted in the chat box after we are through with the questions through the audio that we are going to take. So the floor is open now for questions to each one of you. We would like to request to make the best use of the availability of our speaker, very experienced, distinguished speaker. Could you please raise your digital hand if you may like to ask any question? This is a quick request to each one of you. If you may like to ask any question, we'll be very happy to give you and control an audio control. And I'm now going to sift through the entire list of attendees alphabetical order. So please, we request you for your patience and would appreciate that. I would like to request Mr. Ankush Mudgil, who has raised his digital hand and may like to say something. This is for Mr. Ankush Mudgil. Mr. Ankush, could you please unmute yourself? I have sent you an unmute request also at the same time. This is for Ankush Mudgil. Ankush, could you please unmute yourself? I have sent you an unmute request. It seems Ankush is not able to do that. And yes, Ankush, you are connected. Mr. Ankush? Mr. Ankush, you are connected right now. Would you like to say something? I believe I'm extremely sorry, Ankush, because you have not been able to. Let me try to see if we can come back in the second round. I would like to approach now Dr. Bhoop Singh. Dr. Bhoop Singh from Skill University, if I'm not wrong, from Jaipur. Dr. Bhoop Singh ji.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, Bhardwaj, sir. Very nice presentation and nice awareness program about research data management. But I think we should more aware of this type of program. So can you suggest any training program or any initiative by DELNET or any such kind of institutions to reach root level like remote level library professionals, sir?
Yeah, there are. Thank you, Dr. Bhoop Singh, for your interest and asking this question. There are some certain MOOCs actually, and this MOOC is Mantra. I can show you this. This is Mantra. This is one of the MOOCs started by University of Edinburgh. So you can take up this. They will tell you different steps of data management. It's a freely available. It's a free MOOC you can take up. This website is mantra.edina.ac.uk. So this is one thing. And on the SWIM, I'm not sure there is any MOOC on research data management, but there are, you need to, if you want to get a full understanding of research data management, you have to take a hybrid approach. Take a MOOC from Edinburgh, then you read a certain article. Like I published one special issue in DRDO Journal, Desktop Journal of Library Information Technology. So you can read the article into that, because we address the basic, areas of the whole concept. And I'm sure afterwards you will have a clear understanding of this topic, because it's a new to all of us. So you have to take a hybrid approach. Take up the MOOC, discuss with the experts, read article, and then I'm sure you will get an expertise in this area.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raj. Would like to, because there are a couple of hands we can see and many questions being posted. So we'll just quickly would like to take one by one. Would like to request Dipti Lenka. Dipti, you have raised your hand. May we request you to quickly unmute yourself and ask the question. This is for Dipti Lenka. Dipti, would you like to unmute yourself and to ask the question? This is for Deepthi Lenka. Deepthi, I'm extremely sorry. I can't really wait for much. We are just now moving to our next attendee who may like to say something and ask something. This is for Dr. H.E. Prasanna Kumar. Dr. Prasanna Kumar, I can't give you an audio control since there is no audio device which is shown onto the screen. You may try either to post your question in the chat box or may try to re-log in again and ask the because there's no audio device, so we can't unmute you as there's no audio device. I'm just quickly moving through the alphabetical listing of the attendees, and this is for Mr. Kanan R. Mr. Kanan R, could you please unmute yourself and ask the question? This is for Kanan R. Could you please unmute yourself and ask the question? I believe he's not able to do that, and I can see at the same time the chat box is getting flooded with the questions. So quickly we would like to finish off with our audio round. This is for Madhuri Kumari. Madhuri Kumari, Madhuri, could you please unmute yourself? Yes, we are connected, Madhuri. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and ask the question.
Thank you, ma'am. I am Madhuri Kumari, a research scholar of Central University of Gujarat. Thank you for consideration. My question is that in the deliberation in PPTs, we seen that there are we talk about the open sharing of data because this is an essential part of development of whole world if we see in the collectively. But when we see the PPT in which section they are not in CC license, under not CC license, data repository or data sharing are under not a CC license. That countries are also a Western countries, and these policies are also implemented by the Western countries. So both statement or both facets are opposing each other, contradictory each other. So what is your take on it? Why these type of policies are developing and these type of activities are done in the Western countries? What is your take on this? My question is that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri. Thank you for asking these questions. So basically, the data sharing policy, it's undoubtedly it's a top-down approach because if there's a national policy, people will start sharing it. So here, licenses, if you look into the data of the repositories worldwide, most of these repositories are not following any kind of a license. That's the main problem. They are not following any standard in data management. They are not following any standard in data descriptions. So here is the take is that why not to use the existing license? Because like in India also, we have a government licenses. We can put the government specialized license on data sharing as we are using the data one portal. But my take here as a library information science professional is why not to use the Creative Commons license, same for the data sharing as well. And that's why people are coming to use this Creative Commons license as well. In our PPT, you might have seen that there are more than 500 repositories which are using this kind of Creative Commons licenses. But there are certain areas which are not developed yet in the data repositories or data management. Research data management. One is describing the data. The standards are not being followed. Licenses is another problem, and of course, many other problems is that the data is not in a reusable stage. That why you are putting in the data repository. So that's also one of the problems. The data is not variables are not described, but you are sharing on the data repositories. So when variables are not there in the data sets, how the other people will reuse it? So that's another challenge. So there are a lot to be done in this area, and as far as special standards, licenses, these are at really a formative stage, but down the years we can think that all these problems will be fixed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raj. Yes, indeed, we are in the formative period right now, but I think this does require a lot much of deliberations with all the stakeholders and more the government to intervene and to evolve some policies which would be binding on the institutions, and then we can think about bringing in a kind of a reform in the entire research data management practices. Thank you very much for this. We would now like to request Mr. Mukesh Sachdeva. Mr. Mukesh Sachdeva, I have unmuted you. You have raised your digital hand, requesting you unmute yourself and quickly ask your question. This is for Mr. Mukesh Sachdeva. I'm extremely sorry, Mr. Sachdeva. I can't really afford to wait for long. You can post your question in the chat box if you have any difficulty in getting connected on the audio. Quickly moving through the alphabetical list, we have Mr. Prasanna Hanumantrao. Mr. Prasanna Hanumantrao, could you please unmute yourself? I have unmuted you. Mr. Prasanna Hanumantrao, could you please unmute yourself? I have already unmuted you. This is for Mr. Prasanna Hanumantrao. Extremely sorry, Mr. Prasanna. Post your question in the chat box. This is for Mr. Praveen Kumar. Mr. Praveen Kumar, you have raised your digital hand. I have unmuted you, requesting you, please unmute yourself quickly, Mr. Praveen Kumar. Mr. Praveen Kumar, could you please unmute yourself? No, Praveen is also not able to do. You have to just click onto the microphone if you want to unmute yourself. We would like to now go to Rashmi Raghuvanshi. Mrs. Rashmi Raghuvanshi, I have unmuted you. Please unmute yourself. This is for Rashmi Raghuvanshi. Could you please unmute yourself? Rashmi Raghuvanshi. Rashmi, may I request you to unmute yourself? No, I'm afraid, we have to. Rashmi, you may post your question in the chat box. There are a couple of questions I'm able to find on the left side of my own screen, which are getting flooded, and we may have to take the questions. This is Savita Pradhan. Savita would like to tell you there is no audio device, so we can't give you an audio control. There is no audio device which is getting detected by the system. This is for Shivendra Shekhar. Shivendra Shekhar. This is for Shivendra Shekhar. Shivendra, could you please, and yes, we are connected, Shivendra.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Ma'am, I am from Central Tamil Nadu. I am from Central Tamil Nadu, first year student, ma'am, MLIS. Sir, you said how everyone said cite the data, cite the website for API style. Sir, how to cite the data, sir? And what is the Ranganathan thoughts on RDM, sir?
Ranganathan thought I already shared with you that like file laws, when we talk about the file laws in libraries, we can also apply these file laws in the data management as well. So when you are actually marketing your data management project, you can use these file laws. So that can be a marketing strategy, and that can be mantra of the success. So if you use these file laws, that can also be used to achieve success in the whole management of the research data. So that's a Ranganathan philosophy. I correlated with the file laws, and I also correlated with the 3 laws, that how you can initiate your research data management project using the Ranganathan philosophy. So, and your second question, what was the second question? Sorry, I skipped.
In fact, there are lot many questions, Dr. Raj. I think because of paucity of time, we are compelled to move on, because one question, attendee, that would be, we would truly appreciate that. And we have already would like to mention to all our attendees, Dr. Raj can be reached at his email ID, rajrajchd@gmail.com. You're most welcome. He is always the one who is very proactive, very helping and helpful in answering, and he would be too much pleased enough to answer to your queries. You can always do. Because of paucity of time, we are really compelled, to take only one question, not more than that per attendee. This is for Usha Rani Mata. Usha Rani Mata. Usha Rani, could you please unmute yourself? This is for Usha Rani Mata. Usha, could you please unmute yourself? No, Usha, you're not able to do that. We would appreciate, you may just send across, message us in the chat box. We are through with the audio round. I'm just quickly moving once again from A to Z, just in order to ensure that we don't have anyone's queries. All the queries should be put to rest. And we have Dr. Raj, who is going to do that. So we just want to see to it that all your queries are being met. We have Dipti Linka. Dipti, as we requested earlier also, please post your question, because we have not many questions in the chat box, and we would now like to take that question. And just quickly would like to go through each one of our attendee who may like to still, some of you desires to ask a question. This is for Professor Lakshman Rao ji. You are now offline, so I cannot ask you now. You are offline right now. Issue is, once we are going alphabetically, the alphabet which I have crossed, you have to come back again to see if someone else has raised the hand after we cross that particular, the listing. So we would appreciate your kind understanding in this. We are almost at, have crossed till S, and then I'm just going to quickly move across, and we are about to be through with this, and then we are going to pick up the question from the chat box. We are almost done now through the audio. All the audio questions we have addressed, and now let's go quickly. And here it comes, Dr. Raj, the questions for you. And the first question that I would like to ask is, this is by Dr. Tamogha Acharya, who would like to know, we would like to see some of the RDM tools in action, especially for researchers. Any input of yours? You may like to say something. Have you come across any of the institutions here in India who are using the RDM tools in their respective institutions, Dr. Raj?
Yeah, thank you for asking these questions. So there are, I already shared that ICSR has developed a data repository, and that is hosted by the DELNET Center. So they developed that repository on CCAN software. But I already discussed with it that there are many online free tools and techniques available. For instance, the data management planning. So you can use the DMP tool. So DMP tools gives you a facility to create a data management plan automatically. In fact, this DMP tools also give the DI on the DMPs. So you create that data management plan on that tool, and they will create a DI for your plans. So that DI you can cite in your proposal. That kind of a facility exists there. So apart from that, you can use the Fixture. There's a Genido. So there are many data repository exists which you can. These are generic repository basically, and there are some specialized repositories. Discrete specific repository also exists. So the list is endless. You can use this RE3 data registry for data repositories. So there are more than 2,800 repository lists, and you can choose suitable for your requirement, which are open in nature. So these are the tools.
Perfect. Thank you.
There are actually a lot of other tools exist. Similarly, the top DMP tool which I talked about, there are other data management tools that also exist, which came from the UK, Canada. So there are many tools. So in fact, there can be a whole workshop on these tools for the data management.
Thank you very much. This is another question coming from Dr. D.D. Lal, the librarian at NBRC, and is also heading, the consortia in the country. Is there any government policy made by Government of India to collect the research data in India, or any data repository system developed by Government of India? Would you like to say something on this?
That's why I just answered it. The ICSR has set up the data repository. There are certain other institutions has also started, like the National Oceanographic Institution in Goa. They have their own data repository. But as for the national policy is concerned, there's no national policy exists. There's only national policy exists related to the government data generated by the government and the ministries. And that policy is National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy 2012, which talk about 3 levels of access: open data of access, registered, and restricted access. So that's the repositories, and it also addresses lots of other type of data. So if you want to have a basic regulation so far generated by the government and notified by the government, that's the only policy. But it depends on institutions that how they want to build up. So as a library information science professional, if you are working in a research intensive institutions, you can take up a study of Harvard data repositories. I already discussed this in my talk. So there are many successful case study exists where there was no national policy, where there was no institutional policy, but still the library information science professional came up with a successful data management projects. So you can take up a pilot project in your institutions, and then you can showcase the benefit of that data management plan by telling your researchers and faculty members, these are the space you will get. You can store your data here, that you will get the trustworthiness, and you will have a backup from the institutions if there are any dispute related to the data generated by you during the research process. So that's the thing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raj. And this also reminds me to convey that this is something relatable to DELNET activities, because
Exactly.
we also have now the best practices for data sharing and data accessibility among our member institutions. We do recognize them, give them a very wonderful certificates for that, because our work also, networking libraries, it's a content networking, the data sharing, and as you have also highlighted this, the sharing, data sharing remains as one of the major areas. And for us also, so we also have now, since last 1 year, a very special kind of a drive for this data sharing and data accessibility, because once an institution shares the same data, not the other institutions, but you yourself can also make the use of that 24/7 accessibility and more visibility, more transparency come. It's also an institution, is able to have a greater, visibility across the institution. So that's what we are also at DELNET. This is also remains one of our core areas of working. So thank you very much, Dr. Raj, for making it possible for us to highlight on this aspect, because as concerning DELNET. I do hope that Mr. Kanu Chakravarti's question was also this: is there any government policy for RDMN in India? And as being highlighted by Dr. Bhardwaj, that we do have for data sharing and accessibility 2012 policy, if I'm correct, but for research data management, still there are no policies which are in place. But yes, not much of work has to get into this direction. We have a question from Mrs. Manju Dubey, and this is for you, Dr. Bhardwaj. She would like to know how research data management holds importance with regard to the NEP implementation, as research has been given great importance in NEP. So what is your, what are your views on this?
Research data management in NEP, NEP is just a skeleton. It's a kind of a model that how you will look that NEP, because each and everything are not described in NEP. You have, as a researcher, as a faculty member, you have to understand what NEP, how you can use that NEP in your practices. So of course that NEP gives us a flexibility. That's one thing, that's one of the benefit of the NEP, and that's how it's unique from other national education policy, that there are a lot of flexibility in the national education policy, and it empowers the institutions. So autonomy it gives to the institutions. So as a faculty member, you can start the research data management programs. You can add into your curriculum. So it's not just confined to the information science studies and library science. Other researchers should also understand, other disciplines should also teach their students that how to manage their data. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is you can actually, NEP also talk about the collaborations, not just collaboration with your institution in India, but collaboration worldwide. Okay, and if you are establishing the data management, research data management system, of course, it gives increases your chances of collaborations. So that's you can, I think, see that how the research data management and national education policy can be aligned together.
Thank you very much for this, Dr. Raj. This is a question coming from Dr. Abhishek Yadav, and if I can relate correctly, he's at NPL CSIR National Physical Laboratory at Delhi. And Dr. Yadav's question is, why researchers are hesitant to share their data to anyone else, even after the publication of their articles? So even after publication, why they feel reluctant to share that? What do you feel about it, Dr. Raj? It's a very question.
So there are many reasons, and if you are a researcher, you should ask this question to yourself first, and I'm sure then you will get the answer. But that's one of the findings of one study which was conducted by John Lowenstein and Parlek, and they surveyed it, and they said that 0.6% of the respondent surveyed admitted to falsify the data, and 45.8% said that they selectively reported what worked. So sometimes we selectively choose the results and include our own thesis, but some of the results we don't actually. So and there are actually many other reasons not to share the data. Many reasons. Misinterpretation I mentioned. Scooping is other problems, and people also, because they gather the data after a lot of hard work. If it's experimental data, they use varied techniques actually to generate the final data. Okay, so why they would, some of them have a kind of a hesitation that they don't want to share their hard work, outcome of their hard work with others. So there are cultural problems also, there are personal problems also, there are institutional problems also, there are many problems. So but one thing is that if you are a faculty member in institutions, you can create that culture of sharing. You can inculcate the sharing habits if you are teaching an undergraduate or if you are teaching in post-graduation, all these things. So that's my take on this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Raj. And we can always can say that as DELNET as an organization, we are into the resource sharing, and we always advocate that sharing is caring. So if you share your resources, you do care, for their needs, requirements, and their concerns. So this remains the major thing that we should believe in, firmly believe in, whether we are professionals or whether we are the scholars. We should believe in that if we are sharing, we do, care for the other one's needs and requirements too at the same time. There is a request coming in from Paramjeet Kaur of Amal. She would like to get a reference of this mantra, this publication that you had just shown. And I would be requesting you, Raj, to give us a reference of that. And once we are writing, Dr. Raj, you have to sit in the camera, yes.
Yeah,
and once mantra, exactly. So I would get the details from you, and then I would like to tell it all to our attendees that once we are going to send you the video recording link tomorrow, we will make it sure that we also send you the details for mantra. I have jotted it down and will make it sure that we send it to you. Thank you very much for highlighting about this wonderful publication that everyone would like to. And Dr. Anuradha Seth, Government College of Education from Jammu would like to seek your help. Dr. Raj, she would be writing to you as she is wanting to write a research paper on the bibliometric study of the dissertations submitted by the college students at the Government College of Education in Jammu. And she is wanting to seek your help in framing the entire objectives. So, Dr. Anuradha, you may kindly write to Dr. Raj. As I have said earlier, his email ID is rajchd@gmail.com. Correct me, Dr. Raj? I hope that's correct. Perfect. Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Then there is a question from Mr. Mohan Kumar. What are the roles and responsibilities of librarians in RDM? You have said enough, but still, if you may like to, reply to his question.
Yeah, there are roles. Enough, we can find the role and responsibility here. But if you are working in a smaller institutions where you have difficulties in establishing the infrastructure for the whole process, my answer to you is that try to find out what are the different data sets exist on the internet which are open in nature, and then try to educate your researchers, faculty members, that these are the resources exist if you want to get the data. So data literacy is one role you can actually easily fit into. So start educating the people about the data, research data, how to access it, how to take benefit from the existing data by reusing it. So this is one aspect you can play, and of course you can also make posters and display in your library that these are the resources which you can use to your researchers. And then describing the data sets is another thing. So you can ask your faculty member on which project they are working and try to get cull the data related to that project and send it through an email. So there can be various services you can establish using the existing platform. And if you want to have your own, if you have enough data generated by your institution, you can think of using or establishing the data repositories. You can educate about the legal aspect of it. You can also educate about the licenses. So there are many. It's endless actually. So it depends on your skills and the kind of scope you have, or kind of a time you have in your institutions, the kind of responsibility you have. So how much time you can spare in a week. So all these depend on I can suggest. So you can write an email to me. I can answer you specifically related to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. So infinite possibilities for the librarians to play a pivotal role in research data management and to be of immense help to the research and scholarly community. Question from Kaushik Rao, and he would like to know, is there any landmark case or case studies on data sharing in India? I'm not typically able to relate whether he's wanting to know about research data sharing or what kind of work, but perhaps Mr. Rao, you can further write to us, and we would be happy to take the question. So we would like to now go to, we are just taking the next question, and this is from Shivendra Shekhar, who was wanting to get connected through the audio, and he would like to know, sir, how to cite the data. How to cite the data?
So data citation is, and here also we can fit our role actually to educate the people how to cite the data. So citation is also, you have to use the metadata for citing the data. You can also use DOI of the data. So all these parameters, DOI, how the institution has described the data, who has created the data. So all these parameters, all these descriptors you can use, and the existing standards, the standard citation styles which support data citations, you can use that to cite.
Okay, and this is from Dr. Vinay Kanthola, the librarian at NIT and University.
And of course, one more important thing is on which date you access the data. That also need to mention. That's also very important when you are citing the data sets.
Citing the data. Thanks. And this is from Dr. Vinay Kanthola, who would like to share that recently Government of India has started similar type of service for research scholars. It helps during the research cycle, and it is Shodh Chakra, which is being hosted at InflipNet. So this is from Dr. Vinay Kanthola. He would like to tell to everyone that this is something which is being available. So you can go to Shodh Chakra at InflipNet and you would be. This is from Harsh Mehan, and he would like to say, does Librarian have authority to share institutional data to the third party? The institutional data to the third party from Harsh Mehan. Does librarians have authority to share their institutional data to the third?
This question doesn't fall in this subject. Here we are specifically talking about the research data, but it's a, you have to be very careful while sharing the data without permission with a third party. Yeah, you have to follow certain procedures if you are sharing the data with others.
I believe I'm just trying to get connected with Professor Lakshman Rao ji, and he was there. He was wanting to ask a question. By the time I went back, he was already logged out, and now I'm just trying to see whether he's in again, because he called me up. I have not been able to take the call since I'm taking the session right now. So I would just like to see whether, I would just like to request you, sir, Dr. Lakshman Rao ji, if you may just kindly raise your digital hand if you are there right now, though I'm trying to see across in our list of attendees, because we tried approaching you, but by that time, I believe you may have some internet issue at your place. Because of that, you have not been able to. Just quickly, I'm going through the list again, and would like to just see if there is anything, because I have not been able to take the call as being taking the session, And Vinay, you have raised your hand. I believe, your question we have been able to, your feedback, your inputs we have been able to share. And thank you very much for this. It seems that we are now towards the end of this webinar session, a wonderful, highly enlightening webinar session that we had today, and all because of the presence of such a distinguished learned speaker, Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj, who was able to deliberate so well. And you have indeed been able to sensitize, not only sensitize, you have been able to create the kind of an awareness that we have been wanting to do it, to achieve it. And that has been quite visible in the kind of discussions that this entire webinar has been able to generate. So thank you very much, Dr. Raj, for taking out time for your wonderful work that you are being engaged with. And we really feel so proud of that, being a library and information science professional. You are, excelling in the fields which are really, really something praiseworthy of being a library professional. You are doing it, which is to the core, it is something which is highly laudable, and we greatly admire your work that you are being engaged with. And we wish you the very best. And you are going to, I think, you should think about creating some framework, creating some strong guidelines for the institutions till the time it becomes, it is being taken care of by, by the respective ministries. I believe you can play a very, very bigger role, as you already are being exposed, not with the Indian, but you have been exposed with the global settings. You have been knowing how globally it is being taken care of, and you have got a very wonderful kind of an association with a large number of the universities across the globe who are already doing this. So I think you have greater and greater role to play. What would be your vision about to bring in this change, the way that we are conducting our researches, and how this research data management, what do you feel, what should be done as your views about it, as a futuristic views about it, how to lead the institutions and how to lead our researchers in an environment which is more conducive, also at the same time safeguarding their research, and also to ensure that we are able to have a kind of global best practices also imbibed in this. What is your take as a last question, Dr. Raj, to you?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult actually to answer all these things. But yeah, research data management is very, very important aspect, because I'm not answering you as a librarian point of view, but as a researcher's point of view, it's very important. And I'm giving you one example that how the data is important. Like a couple of months ago, we were doing a study that the open access research done by the information science professional in the country, and then we came up with the conclusion that this is the research people are doing in this area, and then we figure out that this is the outcome of our study. But later part of the research, we added one more parameter to our research, and that was that we wanted to know the researcher age, that how many are senior researcher who producing open access research, how many are the younger researchers who are producing open. So what are the difference in their age, or what are the, is there any generation gap, the younger generation producing more open access research, or the senior generation is producing more open access research? So then the data we had, but we didn't have a data to understand the age, to ascertain the age of the researchers, because we gather data through different sources which doesn't mention the age. But luckily on the internet we found another data sets which mentioned the age of these researchers. That was a different, altogether different data sets. So we correlated our data of our research with that data, and then we came up with the finding. Then we can easily ascertain that the younger generation is producing, or the senior generation is producing more open access. Similarly, the researcher need this kind of understanding. So they want to correlate their research with the existing data sets so that they can come up with a different story. So here data is not important, the story is important, and the librarian can play a very important role to make these stories, to educating the researchers, to educating the faculty members, and to educating the whole, any person who are actually involved in any kind of research. So that's And of course, as a library information science professional, we can see our role is increasing day by day. We have come from the document management to now plagiarism tools and technique, e-research tools and technique we are using and educating people. And now the research data management is another actually opportunity coming our way. So I think we have a bright future in for this profession. The only thing is we need to attract people who can actually really come in this field. That's one problem we have been facing. We are really struggling to attract the people to come to this profession because of various reasons. So that's my vision, is that let's attract people from the diverse fields and make this profession lucrative, not just monetarily lucrative, but also the social status should also be enhanced so that people can happily join this profession. And RDM is a wonderful opportunity now.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Raj. We really can't thank you enough for such wonderful deliberations that we have been able to witness in this last 2 hours. And we really look forward to the times when we can have you back again, and again would have a pleasure of not only listening, it is something that you have practically being involved with, and you have much to contribute for this. So thank you very much for being there with us. We truly always value and greatly appreciate your support to us at DELNET for all our programs, and may God bless you, and you keep on contributing immensely to the profession, and also whosoever touches the lives of the librarians, you have a greater and greater contributions to come in the days to come. Thank you very much, Dr. Raj, once again. And I would like to thank you very much, and we would like to thank all our distinguished professionals who have been able to come and join us today. It has been a very wonderful opportunity for us to have not only the library and information science professionals, but yes, the professionals for whom we serve day and night. We had a wonderful opportunity of having our faculty members, researchers, and scholars today with us on this platform. And through this medium, I would like to convey to all our researchers and scholars who are being there in this platform today that DELNET is keen enough to keep on organizing very specialized programs, the webinars, especially for our researchers and scholars. In addition to our library and information science professionals, we are also wanting to ensure that in the days to come, we contribute in sensitizing our own researchers and scholarly community about the emerging trends which are happening, and how you can conduct your researches in more effective manner, and what are the best practices that you can think about. And yes, library and information science professionals would have a greater role always to play, and that would be a great contributions to your respective organizations. And also, as a researcher, as Dr. Bhardwaj has said, you have to become not just simply you are a researcher, you have to be a smart researcher. And we have shown you today the way that how you can really can acquire those skill sets in order to perform your researches. And we can assure you, as a profession, as a library and information science professionals, all of us collectively are there to help our researcher community, and DELNET is dedicated, committed, for also seeing to it that we enhance the level of research which is happening. And this has been a step today in that direction by organizing this webinar. So it has been a great honor and pleasure for DELNET for conducting this webinar session, and for which we remain grateful to Dr. Rajkumar Bhardwaj for his splendid, stupendous contributions in the deliberations today, and also each one of you for being such an engaging attendees. We would not have been able to conduct this session in such a fulfilling and meaningful manner without your presence today with us, so for which we remain grateful to you. I would just like to brief you that we are going to send it across to you tomorrow, the video recording. Along with that, some of the, the hyperlinks and other things that we are going to do that. So we look forward to having you back again in the future webinars of DELNET. In yet another 1 or 2 minutes time, you are going to receive your certificate of participation with great appreciation from DELNET. And it has been a really a wonderful occasion for us to have interacted with each one of you. Thank you so very much for being there. Thank you very much, Dr. Raj, once again, and God bless you. And it has truly been a pleasure having you with us today. And thank you very much for sharing such a vast expertise on this platform today. Thank you very much. Thank you one and all for being there with us. And we really look forward to the times to have you back again. Till then, stay blessed, stay happy, stay informed, and do stay connected. We really look forward to yet another wonderful opportunity to having each one of you back again with us. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you very much. Can't really thank you enough, Dr. Raj. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank
it's
you.
A great
thank you.
service you are doing to the nation. DELNET is doing a marvelous job.
No, God bless, God bless, God bless all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.